We're going to talk a little bit about the different methodologies that could be used in qualitative research. So please understand that ethnography is one of the main qualitative research methodology. So through ethnography, the researcher will immerse himself or herself in a specific culture to study all components of the social and cultural life of that particular community in depth. So the researcher might try to learn the language, and also live with the people, to be immersed, to learn about what he or her wants to learn. And then while conducting the research, the researcher will observe everything around himself, the world around himself, and he will record behaviors of participants to mostly learn about the structure of that particular culture and how people in that culture understand the world around themselves as well. So it's much more around, ethnography, it's much more about immersion. You go, you live with the people, and it's really a long time process because you can't go overnight and be accepted by that community for the type of research you are going to do. Another common methodology is what we call the grounded theory approach. This approach is mostly designed to discover what problem exists in a community, in a social environment, and how the community themselves handle this problem. So the researcher will create formulation or proposition about that particular culture he's studying, and again, by collecting data and immersing himself or herself in the culture, he will begin to test some of these propositions and letting also his finding guide by some hypotheses that he has had previously. And then over time, he will continue testing and reformulating this proposition until he is able to develop a theory. So that particular method really focuses on developing a new theory. So additional methodology include storytelling, because you can decide to learn about the culture for your own personal interest. It involves also oral history, where you can ask someone to tell you about their personal history or the history of their culture or their community in relation with a specific event. Also, in reviewing existing records, you can learn about history of specific group or a social institution. Observation also is a way of collecting data, because you can observe specific or cultural events like weddings, funerals, public holidays, to learn about those specific events and also their place within the broad social structure of a society. Now we are going to talk also briefly about sampling methodology. So there are, let's say, different types of sampling methodology in qualitative research as well. So the first one is random sampling. I think that we use also in quantitative methodology, where you randomly select participants from a particular category. You just pick them like that. The second one is convenient sampling, where you choose your participant in a specific area where they were gathered together. For example, you can go to a health center and pick up 10 women that arrived for the maternity clinic. The third one is snowball sampling, where you really select participants for the first round of the data collection, and then each of these participants bring one participant into the study. And then the last one is key informant sampling, where you select key influence community representative that really have the knowledge that you are looking for as your participant for that particular research. Really, the sampling matrix can help you decide which criteria are the most important to choose your participant for your study. You really need to start by looking at the criteria that you're going to use to sample your participant in the study, so you can determine the appropriate methodology for your study. So to really complete a sampling matrix, you first decide on your axis of diversity, which is the main criteria to use to select your participant. And then when you finish doing that, you can operationalize the selection criteria. For example, for this, the selection criteria we use is the age. So to really operationalize the age as the main selection criteria, we choose two groups of youth: a group that is young, a group that is old. And the third part of that sampling matrix is to really explain the reason behind why, the definition you give to these selection criteria. So we are going to talk just quickly also about setting for qualitative research. So research can be done, in the community, what we call field-based research, where, your community, your participant live and work. It is where you go to do the research. This is what we call field research. So if you are a health center nurse and you are doing a study on family planning, and you decide to do field research, that means you will go in the community to interview your participant. So this is field research. But action-based research involves an intervention. So the aim is to identify an issue, and you will find the way of developing an intervention to address this issue. And the intervention can be, or the intervention and the research can be also done within the field of the research. For example, if the health center where that family planning nurse decided to do the research and develop an intervention to answer, some of the issues that they had identified, so the interventions will be implemented in that particular health center. So this is action-based research. And research also can be done in libraries or in other places where you can find records and, and try to read them and then develop your research infrastructure around that. You don't have to go on the field, you don't have to go anywhere. You just sit in the library or anywhere you can find documentation and you work on them, and it can be a research site also.